At that conference, I also mentioned that I was going to try to contact President Bush and to urge him to advocate this as the centerpiece for his peace plan for Iraq. One of the major criticisms we've heard, lodged at all candidates, was that nobody really had a plan that seemed to have a great deal of merit as to what to do to create a more peaceful climate in that country. It seems to me that there's nothing that could do more to advance that cause and to suppress terrorism, creating a countering force among the general Iraqi people that would hopefully have them themselves suppress terrorist activities because they themselves see a direct impact whenever oil pipeline flow is disrupted and so forth. Anyhow, I said that I would like to speak with President Bush about this, and all the people present were not Bush supporters. And somebody said, hey, wait a minute, that could get Bush reelected. How about speaking to John Kerry? I said, I'd be delighted to speak to John Kerry. Somebody else jumped up and said, hey, wait a minute, how about it if we could arrange to have you speak to Nader? I said, I'd love to have them all vying with one another to promote what I think, wherever I discuss it, it would be a very popular and appealing objective that most Americans and certainly most Iraqis would find very attractive. Now, initially, of course, there are so many costs that have to be met before oil could begin to spin off a meaningful dividend. But if it were started, and if a very small check was received by every Iraqi, even $100 or $200 a year, which could easily be achieved at full oil flow, I'm told. The average Iraqi wage, I understand, is something like $1,000 a year. Well, if they got 10% boost through a dividend initially, and that dividend could grow, I am told, up as much as $500 in the foreseeable future, it seemingly could do an awful lot to create an entirely different attitude among folk who in the past have seen the benefits of their oil go to a select few at the top, a multitude of palaces and all sorts of emoluments that flow to a select few, and the little guy sees nothing at all. We have addressed that here in Alaska in the manner that the public has found exceedingly attractive. We have corrupted our program to some extent because it departed from the original dividend earning stock sharing concept, but nonetheless it has been very effective in constraining the use of those dollars for all sorts of activities that do not collectively benefit the people, but serve one special interest or another. And I am hopeful that someone will pick up on this. I've written the president and sent him a copy of the article that I did relating to what we were discussing back east. And there is currently, I understand, in Barcelona, a conference of the same group of people that met back east last winter, advocating again a dividend program for Iraq fashioned on the Alaska model. Nobel Prize-winning economist Vernon Smith subsequently wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal in which he too advocated a dividend program for Iraq for precisely the reasons I've mentioned. Interestingly enough, he said, however, while you should copy Alaska's example, avoid Alaska's mistakes. In his view, the mistake we made in Alaska, and I agree with him 100%, is that we did not put all of our oil wealth into an investment account rather than roughly 1/12 of it, and then spun off nothing but dividends. If we had done that, we could fund virtually every government program and do it in a manner that was fair and equitable. We might have high user fees and taxes, but they would be offset in not only large measure, but virtually everybody in Alaska would still be money ahead, and we could fund all sorts of programs that have been truncated and reduced because of our problems in Alaska regarding having generated what I call uneconomic development. We eliminated our income tax a few years ago, and in the process, we cut a major connection between what I call the politician's fingers and the public's purse. Nothing more healthy than requiring a politician to tweak that string connecting them to the public purse whenever they have a great new program that they think is in our best interest. The dividend concept at least permits a portion of that oil wealth to be expended as the individual sees fit rather than government. It does not remove those dollars from any possibility of being used for government programs. It merely requires the state or the nation to extract them through more appropriate means and methods such as user fees and taxes that relate to the benefits one receives. In other words, if you're getting a major benefit from a state program, you ought to pay a higher user fee and a tax than an individual that receives nothing from that program. Anyhow, the concept is seemingly wildly supportive by many, many people once they understand it, and I've been very disappointed. I've heard nothing from the president or either presidential candidate since the initial flurry that occurred last spring. And I've written President Bush Sr. and sent him a copy of the letter I sent to President George W. Bush, and got a very encouraging letter back from President Bush Sr., whom I know fairly well. And I am hopeful that he will light a fire under the president, and he would make that a centerpiece of a plan and fill a vacuum now that is aggravating to people throughout the world. I think if he could point to something as a positive method that could do an awful lot, not only in Iraq, but all other nations that have oil wealth and where most of the benefits have gone to a select few, and the little people see virtually nothing from them, I think it would strike a spark that could ignite a concept that has enormous beneficial implications for all sorts of third world countries and those that have now in the past seen their oil wealth largely squandered. In closing, I'd like to thank you people for taking time to listen to a proposal that could have, I say, a very significant impact on post-war Iraq. As you know, there's been a charge that there's no plan for the peace in Iraq. The proposal that we have just outlined is one that seemingly the president endorses, Colin Powell, the Secretary of State, endorses, several Congress people, but there's been no action to my knowledge, save on the part of Senator Murkowski, who has introduced legislation in Congress to promote such a proposal. But I think if it were to be adopted, it's one means by which we might create a counter to the terrorism we now seeing prevalent in that country, an offset that might incline the major people of Iraq, the majority, to say that those people that in performing those terrorist acts are hitting me in the pocketbook where it really hurts. If we had something of that nature in place, I think we might find the majority of people in Iraq doing their best to suppress that sort of activity because it's in their best long-term self-interest. Thank you.